Hi guys, it's a beautiful day in the neighborhood and let's get together and get some work done. Now, a lot of you guys are still having a really hard time reading. Reading is what you have to do. That's it. This is an English class and your next English class is going to ask you to do even more reading. Oh, so much reading. So we've got to get used to this. This is not something that's going away. English is 4 years and we can do it. Now, first things first, let's take a look at our classwork for the week. Now, side one, we have our blank piece right here, which of course is going to be our collage. If we take a look down here at our instructions, it actually tells you what we're going to be doing. Now, we're going to take a look at what we think and what we see and what we write, and we are going to put it in pictorial form and create a collage right over here. Now, be careful. I know you guys love your gifts, but some of you guys are including stuff that didn't happen in this section, and I love y'all, but it didn't happen in this section, I promise. Now, first things first, we're going to be reading 10 and 11. Now, this is where things in the book totally divulge from the movie. I mean, it is so different. So we have to be very careful on how we answer questions. Now, we can start really easy. 3 things I know about dystopian society. If you guys remember back to the slides, what are 3 things that you know about dystopian society? I mean, how is it constructed? How did the people feel in it? Exactly, how do you know it's a dystopian society? Now, the other questions, 3 questions you have about dystopian societies. Now, please don't ask what is a dystopian society. Again, go back to week 1 and take a look at that slideshow again. Again, it's all about this place and how it influences the behaviors of others. Now, if we go over here, what is the purpose of the tracker? How does one tie into the dystopian society? We'll get to that in a second. It's a good one. So we know that we're going to be looking for the word tracker. Then, page 44, if you're using the PDF, this means nothing. If you're using your actual physical book, like this one, then it totally has some serious meaning. So, if you be so kind, I am going to read to you. This is what happens on Fridays. A lot of people come in for tutorial, and so I will read to them, we will stop, and we will answer questions along the way. That's usually the best way to go about this. So, let us begin. First, we are, of course, here, and we need to go find our chapter 10. And boy, we are really far along, guys. I mean, goodness gracious, are we far along? Oh my, it's kind of crazy. We are like literally, this is week 3. We're halfway through summer school, which is, I'm sure you guys are just so happy about, and I'm happy for you. Now, there's chapter 11. Now, when we're reading chapter 10 and chapter 11, they were condensed greatly in the movies. The reason why is because there's a lot of interaction and dialogue between the characters that is erroneous if you're going to making a movie. Remember, just like Effie and Haymitch are doing to Katniss, they're trying to shape her to be more likable. So this book is shaped to be more likable. So here we go. Chapter 10. For a moment, the camera's hold on Peeta's downcast eyes as what he says sinks in. Then I can see my face, mouth half open in a mix of surprise and protest, magnified on every screen as I realize me. He means me. I press my lips together and stare at the floor, hoping that this will conceal the emotion starting to boil up inside me. Oh, that's a piece of bad luck, says Caesar, and there's a real edge of pain in his voice. The crowd is murmuring with agreement. A few have even given agonized cries. It's not good, agrees Peeta. Well, I don't think any of us can blame you. It's hard not to fall for that young lady, says Caesar. Did she know? Peeta shakes his head. Not until now. I allow my eyes to flicker up for the screen long enough to see the blush of my cheeks as unmistakable. Wouldn't you love to pull her back out here and get a response? Caesar asks the audience. The crowd screams in assent. They want it. Sadly, rules are rules, and Katniss Everdeen's time has been spent. Well, best of luck to you, Peeta Mellark, and I think I speak for all of us in Panem when I say our hearts go with yours. The roar of the crowd is deafening. Peeta has absolutely wiped the rest of us off the map with his declaration of love for me. When the audience finally settles down, he chokes out a quiet, "Thank you," and returns to his seat. We stand for the anthem. I have raised my head out of the required respect and cannot avoid seeing that every screen is now dominated by a shot of Peeta and me, separated by a few feet that in the viewers' heads can never be breached. Poor, tragic us. But I know better. After the anthem, the tributes file back into the training center lobby and into the elevators. I make sure to veer into a car that does not contain PETA. The crowd shows our entourages of stylists and mentors and chaperones, so we have only each other for company. No one speaks. My elevator stops to deposit 4 tributes before I am alone and then find my doors opening to the 12th floor. PETA has only just stepped from his car when I slam my palms into his chest. He loses his balance and crashes into the ugly urn filled with flake flowers. The urn tips and shatters into hundreds of tiny pieces. PETA lands in the shards, and the blood immediately flows from his hands. "What was that for?" he says aghast. "You had no right to go saying those things about me," I shouted at him. Now the elevator's open and the whole crew is there. Effie, Hamish, Cinna, Portia. "What's going on?" says Effie, a note of hysteria in her voice. "Did you fall?" "After she shoved me," says PETA, as Effie and Cinna help him up. Hamish turns to me. "Shoved him?" "This was your idea, wasn't it? Turning me into some kind of fool in front of the entire country," I answer. "It was my idea," says PETA, wincing as he pulls the spikes of pottery from his hands. "Hamish just helped me with it." "Yes, Hamish is very helpful to you," I say. "You are a fool," Hamish says in disgust. "Do you think he hurt you? That boy just gave you something you could never achieve on your own. He made me look weak. He made you look desirable. And let's face it, you can use all the help you can to get in that department. You were about as romantic as dirt until he wanted you. Now they all do. You're all they're talking about. The star-crossed lovers from District 12, says Hamish. But we're not star-crossed lovers, I say. Hamish grabs my shoulders and pins me against the wall. Who cares? It's all a big show. It's how you're perceived. The most I could say about you after your interview is that you were nice enough, although that in itself is a small miracle. Now I can say that you're a heartbreaker. Oh, how the boys back home will fall longingly at your feet. Which do you think will get you more sponsors? The smell of wine from his breath makes me sick. I shove my hands into his shoulders and step away, trying to clear my head. Cinna comes over and puts his arm around me. He's right, Katniss. I don't know what to think. I should have been told, so I didn't look stupid. No, your reaction was perfect. If you'd known, it wouldn't have read as well, says Portia. She's just worried about her boyfriend, says PETA gruffly, tossing away the bloody piece of urn. My cheeks burn against the thought of Gale. I don't have a boyfriend. Whatever, says PETA. But I bet he's smart enough to know a bluff when he sees it. Besides, you didn't say you loved me, so what does it matter? The words are sinking in, my anger fading. I'm torn now between thinking I've been used and thinking I've been given an edge. Hamish is right. I survived my interview, but what was I really? A silly girl spinning in a sparkling dress, giggling. The only moment of any substance I hail was when they talked about Prim. Compared with that, Thresh was silent, deadly power, and I'm forgettable. Silly and sparkly and forgettable. No, not entirely forgettable. I have my 11 in training. But now Pete has made me an object of love, not just his. To hear him tell it, I'd have many admirers. And if the audience really thinks we're in love, I remember how strongly they responded to his confession. Star-crossed lovers. Hamish is right. They eat that stuff up at the Capitol. Suddenly, I'm worried that I didn't react properly. After he said he loved me, do you think I could be in love with him too? I asked. I did, said Portia. The way you avoid looking at the cameras, the blush. The others chime in, agreeing. You're golden, sweetheart. You're going to have sponsors lined up around the block, says Hamish. I'm embarrassed about my reaction. I force myself to acknowledge PETA. I'm sorry I shoved you. Doesn't matter, he shrugs, although it's technically illegal. Are your hands okay? I asked. They'll be all right, he says. In the silence that follows, delicious smells of our dinner waft from the dining room. Come on, let's eat, says Hamish. We all follow him to the table and taking our places, but when PETA is bleeding too heavily and Portia leads him into offer medical treatment. We start the cream and rose petal soup without him. By the time we finish, they're back. PETA's hands are wrapped in bandages. I can't help feeling guilty. Tomorrow's will be in the arena. He has done me a favor, and I have answered with an injury. Will I ever stop owing him? After dinner, we watched a replay of the sitting room, and I seem frilly and shallow, twirling and giggling in my dress, although the others assure me I was charming. PETA actually is charming, and then utterly winning as the boy in love. And there I am, blushing and confused, made beautiful by Cinna's hands and desirable by PETA's confession. Tragic by circumstance, and by all accounts, unforgettable. When the anthem finishes and the screen goes black, a hush falls over the room. Tomorrow at dawn, we will be roused and prepared for the arena. The actual games don't start until 10 because so many of the Capitol residents rise late. But Peta and I must take an early start. There's no telling how far we will travel in the arena and what has been prepared for this year's games. I know Hamish and Effie will not be going with us. As soon as we leave there, they'll be at the games headquarters, hopefully Maddie signing up our sponsors, working out a strategy on how and when to deliver gifts. Senna and Portia will travel with us to the very spot from which we will be launched into the arena. Still, final goodbyes must be said there. Effie takes both of us by the hand with actual tears in her eyes and wishes us well. Thanks us for being the best tributes it has ever been her privilege to sponsor. And then, because it's Effie and she's apparently required by law to say something awful, she adds, I wouldn't be all surprised if I finally get promoted to a decent district next year. She then kisses each of us on the cheek and hurries out, overcome with either the emotional parting or the possible improvement in her fortunes. Hamish crosses his arms and looks us both over. Any final words of advice, Aspida? When the gong sounds, get the hell out of there. You're neither of you up to the bloodbath at the cornucopia. Just clear out. Put as much distance as you can between yourselves and the others, and find a source of water, he says. Got it? And after that, I ask. Stay alive, says Hamish. It's the same advice he gave us on the train, but he's not drunk and laughing this time, and we only nod. What else is there to say? When I head to my room, Peta lingers to talk to Portia. I'm glad. Whatever strange words of parting we exchange can wait until tomorrow. My covers are drawn back, but there's no sign of the red-headed Avox girl. I wish I knew her name. I should have asked it. She could write it down, maybe, or act it out, or perhaps it would only be a result of punishment for her. I take a shower and scrub the gold paint, the makeup, the scent of beauty from my body. All that remains is the design team's efforts that are the flames on my nails. I decided to keep them as a reminder of who I am to the audience. Katniss, the girl who was on fire. Perhaps it will give them something to hold on to in the days to come. I pull on a thick, fleecy nightgown and climb into bed. It takes me about 5 seconds to realize I'll never fall asleep. And I need sleep desperately because in an arena, every moment I give in to fatigue will be an invitation to death. It's no good. 1 hour, two, three pass, and my eyelids refuse to get heavy. I can't stop trying to imagine exactly what the train we will be thrown into. Desert, swamp, a frigid wasteland. Above all, I am hoping for trees, which may afford me some means of concealment and food and shelter. Often there are trees because barren landscapes are dull and the games resolve too quickly without them. But what will the climate be like? What traps have the game makers hidden? Sorry, to liven up the slower moments. And then there are my fellow tributes. I'm more anxious than I am. The more anxious I am to find sleep, the more it eludes me. Finally, I am too restless to even stay in bed. I pace the floor, the heart beating too fast, breathing too short. My room feels like a prison cell. If I don't get air soon, I'm going to start to throw things again. I run down the hall to the door to the roof, and it's only unlocked but ajar. Perhaps someone forgot to close it, but it doesn't matter. The energy field enclosing the roof prevents any desperate form of escape, and I am not looking to escape, only to fill my lungs with air. I want to see the sky and the moon and the last night that will be hunting me. The roof is not lit at night. As soon as my bare feet reach its tilted surface, I see his silhouette, black against the lights that shine again endlessly in the Capitol. There's quite a commotion going on down in the streets, music and singing and car horns, none of which you could hear from the thick glass window panels in my room. I could slip away now without him noticing me, and he wouldn't hear me over the din. But that night air is so sweet, and I can't bear returning to the stuffy cage of a room. And what difference does it make whether we speak or not? My feet move soundlessly across the tiles. I'm only a yard behind him when I say, You should be getting some sleep. He starts, but doesn't turn. I can see him give his head a slight shake. I don't want to miss the party. It's for us, after all. I come up beside him and lean over the edge to the rail. The wide streets are full of dancing people, and I squint to make out the tiny figures in more detail. Are they in costumes? Who could tell? Peter answers. With all the crazy clothes they wear, couldn't sleep either. Couldn't turn my mind off, I say. Thinking about your family, he asks. No, I admit a bit guiltily. All I can do is wonder about tomorrow, which is pointless, of course. In the light of the from below, I can see his face now, the awkward way he holds his bandaged hands. I really am sorry about your hands. It doesn't matter, Katniss, he says. I've never been a contender in these games anyway. That's no way to be thinking, I say. Why not? It's true. My best hope is not to disgrace myself, and he hesitates. And what? I don't know how to say it exactly. Only I want to die as myself. Does that make any sense? He asks. I shake my head. How could he die as anyone but himself? I don't want them to change me in there, turn me into some kind of monster that I'm not. I bite my lip, feeling inferior. While I've been ruminating in the availability of trees, PETA has been struggling with how to maintain identity, his purity of self. Do you mean you won't kill anyone? I ask. No, when the time comes, I'm sure I'll kill just like everybody else. I can't go down without a fight. Only I keep wishing I could think of a way to show the Capitol they don't own me, that I'm more than just a piece of the games. Sorry, piece in their games, says PETA. But you're not, I say. None of us are. That's how the games work. Dystopian moment, I think? Okay, but within that framework, there's still you. There's still me, he insists. Don't you see? A little, only no offense, but who cares, PETA? I say. I do. I mean, what else am I allowed to care about at this point? He asks angrily. He's locked those blue eyes on mine now, demanding an answer. I take a step back, care about what Hamish said, about staying alive. PETA smiles at me, sad and mocking. Okay, thanks for the tips, sweetheart. It's like a slap to the face. His use of Hamish is patronizing endearment. Look, if you want to spend the last hours of your life planning some noble death in the arena, that's your choice. I want to spend mine in District 12. Wouldn't surprise me if you do, says PETA. Give my mother my best when you make it back, will you? Count on it, I say. And then I turn to leave the roof. I spend the rest of the night slipping in and out of a doze, imagining the cutting remarks I will make to Peter Malark in the morning. Peter Malark. We will see how high and mighty he is when he's faced with life and death. He'd probably turn into one of those raging beast tributes kind who tries to eat someone's heart after they've killed them. There was a guy like that a few years ago in District 6 called Titus. He went completely savage, and the game makers had to have him stunned with electric guns to collect the bodies of the players he'd killed before he ate them. There are rules in the arena, but cannibalism doesn't play well with the Capitol audience, so they tried to head it off. There is some speculation that the avalanche that finally took Titus out was specifically engineered to ensure the victor was not a lunatic. I don't see PETA in the morning. Senna comes to me before dawn, gives me a simple shift to wear, and guides me to the roof. My final dressing and preparations will be done in the catacombs underneath the arena itself. A hovercraft appears out of thin air, just like the one that did in the woods the day that I saw the red-headed Avox girl captured, and the ladder drops down. I place my hands on the feet of the lower rungs, and instantly I'm frozen. Some sort of current glues me to the ladder while I'm lifted safely inside. I expect the ladder to release me then, but I'm still stuck when a woman with a white coat approaches me, carrying a syringe. This is just your tracker, Katniss. The stiller you are, the more efficiently it can be placed, she says. Still, I'm a statue. But that doesn't prevent me from feeling the sharp stab of pain as the needle inserts the metal tracking device deep under the skin on the inside of my forearm. Now, the game makers will always be able to trace my whereabouts in the arena. Wouldn't want to lose a tribute. As soon as the tracker's in place, the ladder releases me and the woman disappears, and Cinna is retrieved from the roof. The Navox boy comes in and directs us to the room where the breakfast is being laid out. Despite the tension in my stomach, I eat as much as I can, although none of the delectable food makes any impression on me. I'm so nervous. I could be eating coal dust. The one thing that... Okay, we're going to stop right there because we're going to go take a look at our question. What is the purpose of the tracker? How does this tie into dystopian society? What is the purpose of any tracker, guys? So they put this thing into her arm, and she says they don't want to lose a tribute. So you have this entire ideology. We feel a sense of independence as well as self when we are able to move freely and we are able to do what we like. Well, of course, that tracker is a big fatty reminder that you may not do what you like, and we're going to know everything that you do. So that kind of ties into this dystopian society's big brother or the government constantly monitoring the citizens. Now, launch room as a stockyard where animals go to be slaughtered. How is this reference appropriate at this point in the novel? Let's get to that point before we move on, shall we? Back to the book. I mean, the one thing that distracts me at all is the view from the windows as we sail over the city and then into the wilderness beyond. This is what the birds see, only they're free and safe, the very opposite of me. Dystopian. The ride lasts about half an hour before the windows black out, suggesting that we're nearing the arena. The hovercraft lands, and Cinna and I go back to the ladder. Only this time it leads down to a tube underground in the catacombs that lie beneath the arena. We follow the instructions to my destination, a chamber for my preparation. In the capital, they call it the launch room. In the districts, it's referred to as a stockyard, a place animals go before the slaughter. Okay, so if we go back to our work for this week, How is this reference, calling the launch room where the tributes get ready in order to be put out into the games, how is this reference appropriate to being called a stockyard? So why is the launch room considered a stockyard? I'm not going to give you the answer to that, but I'm going to tell you it's right there on the page. Slide 3. In dystopian society, there is a pressure to conform. Peeta doesn't want the capital to change him into the monster during the games. Is this a form of rebellion? Do people have to turn into monsters when they change? Cite textual evidence while giving your answer. Now, this one's hard because I'm asking for textual evidence. Can people change? This is all up to you. Now, do people who change, are they always changing for the worse? Are they always changing for the better? You can choose. Now, when it comes to textual evidence, probably the easier one to prove is that they change for the worse. And I'll show you in a section where it kind of proves that point. However, be independent, be rebellious, totally go for people can become better. And if I were you, I don't know, maybe I'd take a look at a character who maybe in the beginning wasn't very helpful or maybe drunk all the time and now he's more helpful and not drunk all the time. Hint, 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 hint. But if you're going to go for the, bad thing, people can become bad, you're going to get a whole big taste of it in just a second. Let us continue. Everything is brand new. I'll be the first and only tribute to use the launch room. The areas are historic sites preserved after the games, popular destinations for capital residents to visit up to vacation. Go for a month, rewatch the games, tour the catacombs, visit the sites where the deaths took place. Oh. You can even take part in reenactments. They say the food is excellent. Oh my goodness. I struggle to keep my breakfast down as I shower and clean my teeth. Cinna does my hair in a simple trademark braid down my back. When the clothes arrive, the same as every tribute. Cinna has no say in my outfit, does not even know what will be in the package, but he helps me dress in the undergarments, a simple tawny pants, light green blouse, sturdy brown belt, a thin hooded black jacket that falls to my thighs. The material in this jacket is designed to reflect body heat. Expect some cool nights, he says. The boots, worn in their skin-tight socks, are better than I could have hoped for. Soft leather, but unlike the ones at home, these have a narrow, flexible rubber sole that treads, and with treads though, good for running. I think I'm finished when Cinna pulls a gold Mockingjay pen from his pocket. I'm completely forgotten about it. Where did you get that? I asked. Now, just a reminder, she did not get that pen from Prim. That's not what happens in the book. Off the green outfit you wore on the train, he says. I remember now taking it off my mother's dress, pinning it onto the shirt. Did your district's token, right? I nod, and he fastens it to my shirt. It barely cleared the review board. Some thought the pin could be used as a weapon, giving you an unfair advantage. But eventually they let it through, says Cinna. They estimated the ring. Eliminated a ring from the District 1 girl, though. If you twisted the gemstone, a spike popped out, poisoned one. She claimed she had no knowledge the ring transformed, and there was no way to prove she did. But she lost her token. There, you're all set. Move around, make sure that everything feels comfortable. I walk and run in a circle, swing my arms about. Yes, it's fine. Fits perfectly. Then there's nothing to do but wait for the call, says Cinna. Unless you think you could eat any more? I turn down the food, but accept a glass of water that I take tiny sips from as we wait for the cat on the couch. I don't want to chew on my nails or on my lips, so I find myself gnawing on the side of my cheek. It still hasn't fully healed from a few days ago. Soon the taste of blood fills my mouth. Nervousness seeps into terror as I anticipate what is to come. I could be dead, flat out dead, in an hour. Not even. My fingers obsessively trace a hard little lump on my forearm where the woman injected the tracking device. I press on it, even though it hurts. I press on it as hard as a small bruise begins to form. Do you want to talk, Katniss? Cinna asks. I shake my head, but after a moment hold out my hand to him. Cinna closes in both of his, and this is how we sit until a pleasant female voice announces it's time to prepare for launch. So, clutching one of Cinna's hands, I walk over to the stand in a circular metal plate. Remember what Hamish said. Run, find water. The rest will follow, he says, and I nod. And remember this. I'm not allowed to bet, but if I could, my money would be on you. Truly, I whisper. Truly, says Cinna. He leans down and kisses me on the forehead. Good luck, girl on fire. And then a glass cylinder is lowering around me, breaking our handhold, cutting him off from me. He taps his fingers under his chin, head high. I lift my chin and stand as straight as I can. The cylinder begins to rise. For maybe 15 seconds, I'm in darkness. Then I can feel the metal plate pushing me out of the cylinder onto the open air. For the moment, my eyes are dazzled by the bright sunlight, and I am conscious only of a strong wind with hopeful smell of pine trees. Then I hear the legendary announcer, Claudius Templesmith. His voice booms all around me. Ladies and gentlemen, let the 74th Annual Hunger Games begin. Okay, so here we go. We're going to see a whole bunch of people change for the worse. Chapter 11. 60 seconds. That's how long we're required to stand on our metal circles before the sound of the gong releases us. Step out before that minute's up and landmines blow your legs off. 60 seconds to take in the ring of tributes, all equidistant. That means they're all distant. They're all equal distance from each other. From the cornucopia, a giant golden horn shaped like a cone with a curved tail, the mouth of which is at least 20 feet high, spilling over with things that would give us life in the arena: food, containers of water, weapons, medicine, garments, fire starters. Strewn around the cornucopia are other supplies, their value decreasing in value farther away they are from the horn. For instance, only a few steps from my feet lays a 3-foot square of plastic. Certainly, it could be of some use in a downpour, but here in the mouth, I can see a tent packed with what would protect from almost any sort of weather. If I had the guts to go in and fight for it against the other 23 tributes, which I have been instructed not to do. We're on a flat, open stretch of ground, a plain, hard packed dirt. Behind the tributes across from me, I can see nothing indicating either steep downward slope or even a cliff. To my right lies a lake. On the left and back, sparse piney woods. This is where Hamish would want me to go immediately. I hear his instructions in my head: just clear out. Put as much distance as you can between yourselves and the others. Find a source of water. But it's tempting, so tempting, when I see the bounty waiting there before me, and I know that if I didn't get it, someone else will. That the career tributes who survive the bloodbath will divide it up most of these life-sustaining spoils. Something catches my eye. There, resting on a mound of blanket rolls, was a silver sheath of arrows and a bow, clearly already strung, just waiting to be engaged. That's mine. I think it's meant for me. I'm fast. I can sprint faster than any of the girls in our school, although a couple can beat me in a distance races. But the 40-yard length, this is what I am built for. I know I can get it. I know I can reach it first. But then the question is, how quickly can I get it out of there? By the time I've scrambled up the packs and grabbed the weapons, others will have reached the horn, and one or two I might be able to pick off. But say there's a dozen. At that close range, they could take me down with spears or clubs, or their own powerful fists. Still, I won't be the only target. I'm betting many of the other tributes will pass up the smaller girl, even one who scored an 11 in training, to make to take out their fiercer adversaries. Hamish has never seen me run. Maybe if he had, he'd tell me to go for it, get the weapon. Since that very weapon is what might be my salvation, and I only see one bow in the whole pile. I know the minute I must be almost up, and we'll have to decide what my strategy will be. And I find myself positioning my feet to run, only not away into the stir rounding into the stir rounding forests, but towards the pile, towards the bow. Then suddenly I notice Peta, and he's about 5 tributes to my right, quite a fair distance. Still, I can see he's looking at me, and I think he might be shaking his head. But the sun's in my eyes, and while I'm puzzling over that, the gong rings out, and I've missed it. I've missed my chance, because those extra couple of seconds I've lost by not being ready enough to change my mind about what's going on. My feet shuffle for a moment, confused in the direction my brain wants to take. Then I lunge forward, scoop up the sheet of plastic, a loaf of bread. My pickings are so small, and I'm so angry with Peta for distracting me that I sprint in 20 yards to retrieve a bright orange backpack that could hold anything, because I can't stand leaving with virtually nothing. A boy, I think from District 9, reaches the pack at the same time I do. With a brief time, we grapple for it, and then he coughs, spattering blood into my face. I stagger back, repulsed by the warm, sticky spray. Then the boy slips to the ground. That's when I see a knife in his back. Already other tributes have reached the cornucopia and are spreading out for attack. Yes, the girl from District 2, 10 yards away, running toward me, the one clutching a half-dozen knives. I've seen her throw in training. She never misses, and I am her next target. All the general fear I've been feeling condenses into immediate fear for this girl, this girl, this predator who might kill me in seconds. Adrenaline shoots through me, and I sling the pack over my shoulder and run full speed for the woods. I can hear the blade whistling towards me, reflexively hike the pack up on to protect my head. The blade lodges in the pack. Both straps in my shoulders now. I take off for the trees. Somehow I know the girl will not pursue me, and that she'll be drawn back to the cornucopia before all the good stuff is gone. A grin crosses my face, thanks to for the knife, I think. At the edge of the woods, I turned one instant to survey the field. About a dozen or so tributes are hacking away at one another at the horn. Several lie dead already in the ground. Those who have taken flight are dispersing into the trees and into the void opposite me. I continue running until the woods have hidden me from the other tributes, and slow for a steady jog. I think I can maintain for a while. For the next few hours, I alternate between jogging and walking. So, if you wanted to use some textual evidence to prove that people change really quickly, or it can change for the worse, definitely you can go for all of a sudden these 24 kids become death machines. Go for it. No problem whatsoever. Now, we're looking here for you to answer all the questions, okay? First, PETA doesn't want to be the capital to change him into a monster during the games. Is this a form of rebellion? So first you have to answer, PETA wanting this, and then you'd have to answer, do people have to turn into monsters when they change? You are going to say people do or people do not have to change into to monsters when they choose to change. For instance, comma, and then you're going to give me an example from the book that proves you're right. Now, again, you can go for good or bad. Either one is perfectly valid. Just make sure you back yourself up. Now, slide 4. Okay. Ooh. We're back to vocab. And sometimes you guys have some problems with these, okay? First, left side, we read. Read through the vocabulary words and definitions. So we take a look. Disgrace, loss of respect, honor, or esteem. That's the loss is the big part there. Perplexed is to be confused. Foliage, leaves of a plant. Impudent, unwise or incautious, reckless. Abstain, to hold oneself back voluntarily. It's when you choose not to have something. Now, right side, answer questions 1 through 3 in complete sentences. Please, please, please. So we can answer these. What is the cornucopia? Why is it important? Oh, we already know. The cornucopia is a giant horn, 20 feet high, that is full of everything necessary to survive the games. Now, why is it important? That's an entirely different sin. Well, what happens if you do? Now, you have to choose why it's important. Not only does it sustain life, so what does it also do? Because she explains what those careers do with that stuff and what's going to happen. 2. What 3 items does Katniss leave the cornucopia with? We know she got the backpack, she's got the plastic, she got a knife. And the knife was not intentional. 3. Compare the games to our reality television today. Are there some similarities? What does the popularity of some reality TV shows say about our society? Now, ladies and gentlemen, a vast majority of our reality TV shows have kind of skewed. They used to be contests of skill or of survival, and you would get money prizes. Now it's more watching people in their everyday lives do nothing. So we've gone from Survivor to Kardashians. The person who wrote this question is looking more towards the Survivor set. So if you don't know what Survivor is, definitely look it up. Take a look at it. How does this have something to do with this book? What does the popularity of some reality TV shows say about our society? What does the fact that these people make millions and millions of dollars off of this say about us? Think about it. Now, those ones are super easy. 5. Now we're getting to one. I know you guys hate these. I know. No. You guys, I'm going to ask for 2, okay? Just 2. I know it has a bunch. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There's 5. I'm going to ask for 2, okay? I'm going to be kind. You guys got a hard week. So, 2. We're going to look for complete the chart. Look for examples, direct quotes from the examples of manipulation. It can be in actions or words, an element of the games. Okay, so we're going to talk about how people are being manipulated within the game. This was no tribute campfire gone out of control, no accidental occurrence. The flames that bear down on me have an unnatural height, a uniformity that marks them as human-made, machine-made, game-maker-made. The game makers are manipulating Katniss and the other tributes. They're trying to force them. The purpose is to force the tributes out of hiding and make the games more interesting to viewers. Katniss hides. First thing. And that's because her thing is like, I'll come back and kill whoever's left. Now, here we go. Back to our book. Ta-da! At the edge of the woods, I turn and for one instant survey the field. About a dozen or so tributes are hacking away at one another at the horn. Several lie dead already on the ground. Those who have taken the fight are disappearing into trees into the void opposite me. I continue running until the woods have hidden me from the other tributes and slow into a steady jog that I think I can maintain for a while. For the next few hours, I alternate between jogging and walking, putting as much distance as I can between myself and my competitors. I lost my bread during the struggle with the boy from District 9. I've but managed to stuff my plastic in my sleeve so I can walk and fold it neatly and tuck it into my pocket. I also free the knife. It's a fine one with a long, sharp blade serrated near the handle, which will make it handy for sawing through things, and I slide it into my belt. I don't dare stop to examine the contents of the pack yet. I just keep moving, pausing only to check for pursuers. I can go a long time. I know that from my many days in the woods, but I will need water, and that's what Hamish's second instruction. And since I sort of botched the first, I keep a sharp eye out for any sign of it. No luck. The woods begin to evolve, and the pines are intermixed with a variety of trees. Some I recognize, some completely foreign to me. At one point, I hear the noise and pull my knife. Think I may have to defend myself, but I only started a rabbit. Good to see you, I whisper. But if there's one rabbit, there could be hundreds just waiting to be snared. The ground slopes down, and I don't particularly like this. Valleys make me feel trapped. I want to be high, like in the hills around District 2, where I can see my enemies approaching. But I have no choice but to keep going. Funnily enough, I don't feel bad. The days of gorging myself have paid off. I've got staying power, even though I'm short on sleep. Being in the woods is rejuvenating. I'm glad for solitude, even though it's an illusion, because I'm probably on screen right now. Not constantly, but off and on. There are many deaths to show in the first day that a tribute trekking through the woods isn't much to look at. But they'll show me enough to let people know I'm alive, uninjured, and on the move. One of the heaviest days of betting is on the opening, and when the initial casualties come in. But that can't compare to what happens as the field shrinks as to a handful of players. It's late afternoon when I begin to hear the cannons. Each shot represents a dead tribute. The fighting must have finally stopped at the cornucopia. They never collect the bloodbath bodies until all the killers have dispersed. On the opening day, they don't even fire the cannons until the initial fighting is over, because it's too hard to keep track of the fatalities. I allow myself to pause, panting, and I count the shots. 1, 2, 3, on until I reach 11. 11 dead in all, 13 left to play. My fingernails scraped the dried blood from the boy from District 9 that coughed in my face. He's gone, certainly. I wonder about PETA. Has he lasted through the day? I know in a few hours, when they project the dead's images on the sky for the rest of us to see. All of a sudden, I'm overwhelmed by the thought that PETA may be already lost. Bled white, collected, and in the process of being transported back to the capital to be cleaned up, redressed, and shipped to the simple wooden box in District 12. No longer here, heading home. No longer here, heading home. I try hard to remember if I saw him once the action started, but the last image I can conjure up of Peter is shaking his head as the gong rang out. Maybe it's better if he's gone already. He had no confidence that he could win, and I will not end up with the unpleasant task of killing him. Maybe it's better if he's out of this for good. I slump down next to my pack, exhausted. I need to go through it anyway, before night falls. See what I have to work with. As I unhook the straps, I can feel its sturdy, well-made, but rather unfortunate color. This orange will practically glow in the dark, and I make a mental note to camouflage it first thing tomorrow. I flip open the flap, and what I want most right at this moment is water. Hamish's directive to immediately find water was not arbitrary. I won't last long without it. For a few days, I'll be able to function with unpleasant symptoms of dehydration, but after that, I'll deteriorate into helplessness and be dead in a week, tops. I carefully lay out the provisions: one thin black sleeping bag that reflects body heat, a pack of crackers, a pack of dried beef strips, a bottle of iodine, a box of wooden matches, a small coil of wire, a pair of sunglasses, and half-a-gallon plastic bottle with a cap for carrying water that is bone dry. No water. How hard would it have been for them to fill up the bottle? I became more aware of the dryness in my throat and mouth, and it cracks my lips. I've been moving all day, and it's been hot, and I've sweated a lot. I do this at home, but there's always streams to drink from, or snow to be melted if it should come to it. As I refill my pack, I have an awful thought. The lake. The one I saw while I was waiting for the gong to sound. What if the only water source in this area? That way, they'd all guarantee drawing us to fight. The lake is a full day's journey from here where I sit. Now, a much harder journey than nothing to drink, and then, even if I reach it, it's sure to be heavily guarded by some of the career tributes. I'm about to panic when I remember the rabbit I started earlier in the day. It has to drink too. I just have to find out where. Twilight is closing in, and I am ill at ease. The trees are too thin to offer much concealment. The layers of pine needles that muffles my footsteps also make tracking animals harder. Then I need their trails to find water. And I'm still heading downhill, deeper and deeper into the valley that seems endless. I'm hungry too, but I don't dare break into my precious store of crackers or beef yet. Instead, I take my knife and go to work on a pine tree, cutting away the outer bark and scraping a large handful of the softer inner bark. I slowly chew the stuff as I walk along. After a week of the finest food in the world, it's a little hard to choke down, but I've eaten plenty of pine in my life. I'll adjust quickly. In another hour, it's clear I've got to find a place to camp. Night creatures are coming out. I can hear the occasional hoot of the owl. My first clue that I'll be competing with natural predators for the rabbits. As to whether I'll be viewed as a source of food, it's too soon to tell. There could be any number of animals stalking me at the moment. But right now, I've decided to take my fellow tributes to priority. I'm sure many will continue hunting through the night. Those who fought it out at the cornucopia will have food, an abundance of water from the lake, torches and flashlights, and weapons they're itching to use. I can only hope I've traveled far and fast enough to be out of range. Before settling down, I take my wire and set two twitched up snares in the brush. I know it's risky to be setting traps, but will go so fast. But food will go so fast out here, and I can't set snares on the run. Still, I walk another 5 minutes before making camp. I pick my tree carefully, a willow, not terribly tall, but set on a clump of other willows, offering concealment with those long, flowing tresses. I climb up, sticking to the stronger branches close to the trunk. I find a sturdy fork for my bed. It takes some doing, but I arrange the sleeping bag in a relatively comfortable manner. I place my backpack at the foot of the bag, then slide in after it. As a precaution, I remove my belt, loop it all the way around the branch to my sleeping bag, and refasten it in my waist. Now, if I roll over in my sleep, I won't be crashing to the ground. I'm small enough to tuck the top of the bag over my head, but I put on my hood as well. As night falls, the air is cooling quickly. Despite the risk I took from getting the backpack, I know now that it was the right choice. This sleeping bag, radiating back the preserving my body heat, will be invaluable. I'm sure there are several other tributes whose biggest concern right now is how to stay warm, whereas I may actually be able to get a few hours of sleep, if only I wasn't so thirsty. The night has just come when I hear the anthem that precedes the death recap. Through the branches, I can see the seal of the Capitol, which appears floating in the sky. I'm actually viewing another screen, an enormous one that is transported by one of their disappearing hovercrafts. The anthem fades out, and the sky goes dark for a moment. At home, we would be watching full coverage of each and every killing, and that's, sorry. But that's thought to give an unfair advantage to the living tributes. For instance, if I got my hands on a bow and shot someone, my secret would be revealed to all. No, here in the Reno, all we will are to see some photographs they showed when they televised the training scores, simple headshots. But now instead of scores, they post only district numbers. I take a deep breath as my face of the 11 dead tributes begin to tick them off one by one in my fingers. First reappears the girl from District 3. That means that the career tributes from 1 and 2 have all survived. No surprises there. Then the boy from 4. I didn't expect that one. Usually all the careers make it through the first day. The boy from District 5. I guess the fox-faced girl made it. Both tributes from 6 and 7. The boy from 8. Both from 9. Yes, there's a boy who fought for the backpack. I've run through my fingers. Only one more dead tribute to go. It was Peta? No, it was the girl from District 10. That's it. The Capitol seal is back with a final musical flourish, and the darkness sounds in the forest resume. I'm relieved that Pete is alive. I tell myself again that if I get killed, his winning will benefit my mother and Prim the most. This is what I tell myself to explain the conflicting emotions that arise when I think of Peta. The gratitude that he gave me an edge by professing his love for me in the interview. The anger at his superiority on the roof. The dread that he may come face to face at any moment in the arena. 11 dead, but none from District 12. I try to work out who's left. 5 career tributes, Foxface, Thresh, and Rue. Rue! So she made it through the first day after all. I can't help feeling glad. That makes 10 of us. The other 3 I'll figure out tomorrow. Now, when it's dark, and I have traveled far, I am nestled high in the tree, and now I try to rest. I haven't really slept for 2 days, and that's when there's a long day's journey into the arena. Slowly, I allow my muscles to relax, my eyes to close, and the last thing I think of is that I'm lucky I don't snore. Snap! The sound of breaking branches wakes me. How long have I been asleep? 4 hours? 5? The tip of my nose is icy cold. Snap! Snap! What's going on? This is not the sound of a branch under someone's foot, but the sharp cracking of one coming from a tree. Snap! Snap! I judge to be several hundred yards to my right. Slowly, noiselessly, I turn myself in that direction, and for a few minutes there's nothing but blackness and some shuffling. Then I see a spark, and a small fire begins to bloom. A pair of warm hands over flames. I can't make it out more than that. I have to bite my lip not to scream every foul name that I know at the fire starter. What are they thinking? A fire. I'll just at nightfall. A fire. I'll just at nightfall would have been one thing. Whose Those who battle at the cornucopia with their superior strength and surplus of supplies, they couldn't have possibly been near enough to spot the flames then. But now, when they're probably been combing the woods for hours looking for victims, you might as well be waving a flag shouting, "Come and get me!" And here I am, a stone's throw from the biggest idiot in the games, strapped to a tree, not daring to flee since my general location is just about broadcast to any killer who cares. I mean, I know it's cold out there, but not everybody has a sleeping bag. But when you grit your teeth and stick it out until dawn, I lay smoldering in my bag for the next couple of hours. Really think that if I can get out of this tree, I wouldn't be the least problem taking out my new neighbor. My instincts has been to flee, not fight. But obviously, this person's a hazard. Stupid people are dangerous, and this one probably doesn't have much in the way of weapons, while I've got an excellent knife. The sky is still dark, but I can feel the first signs of dawn approaching. I'm beginning to think we, meaning the person whose death I am now devising, and me, we might actually have gone unnoticed when I hear it. Several pairs of feet breaking into the run. The fire starter must have dozed off. They're on her before she can escape. I know it's a girl now. I can tell by her pleading, the agonized screams that follow. Then there's the laughter and the congratulations from several voices. Someone cries out, 12 down, 11 to go, which gets a round of appreciative hoots. So let's start right there and go back to our questions. What wakes up Katniss? Now, what wakes up Katniss? It's got to be that girl lighting a fire. And she's like, no one's this stupid. She's like, maybe I should kill her. This will keep her from being stupid. I don't know if Katniss actually could have killed her. Excellent question to talk about on Friday. Why do the game makers want to chase the tributes from their hiding places? We're going to get there in just a second. Oh, these are chapter 13. Yes. Now, manipulation. It'll be here soon. I promise. So they're fighting in a pack. I'm not really surprised. Often alliances are formed in the early stages of the games, a strong band together and the hunt down the weak. Then, when the tension becomes too great, begin to turn on one another. I don't have to wonder too hard who has made the alliance. It's to be the remaining career tributes in Districts 1, 2, and 4. 2 boys and 3 girls, the ones who've lunched together. For a moment, I hear them checking the girl for the supplies, and I can tell by their comments they found nothing good. I wonder if the victim is Rue, but I quickly dismiss the thought. She's much too bright to be building a fire like that. Better clear out so that they can get the body before it starts stinking. I'm almost certain that the brutish boy from District 2. Then there are murmurs of assent, and then to my horror, I hear the pack heading toward me. They don't even know I'm there. How could they? And I'm well concealed in the clump of trees, at least while the sun stays down. Then my black sleeping bag will be turned from camouflage to trouble. If they could just keep moving, they'll pass me and be gone in a minute. But the couriers stop at the clearing about 10 yards from my tree. They have flashlights, torches. I can see an arm here, a boot there, the breaks in the branches. I turn to stone, not even daring to breathe. Have they spotted me? No, not yet. I can tell from their words that their minds are elsewhere. Shouldn't we have heard a cannon by now? I'd say yes. Nothing to prevent them from going immediately. Unless she isn't dead. She's dead. I struck her myself. Then where's the cannon? Someone go back. Make sure the job's done. Yeah, we don't want to have the tracker down twice. I said she's dead. An argument breaks out until one tribute silences the others. We're wasting time. I'll go finish her and let's move on. I almost fall out of the tree. The voice belongs to Peeta. Thank goodness I had the foresight to belt myself in. I rolled sideways off the fork, and I'm facing the ground. I held in place by the belt, one hand and my feet straddling the pack inside my sleeping bag, braced against the trunk. Then there must be some rustling when I tip sideways, but the couriers have been too caught up in their own argument to catch it. Go on then, lover boy, says the boy from District 2. See for yourself. I just about get a glimpse of Peeta, lit by a torch, heading back to the girl by the fire. His face is swollen with bruises, and there's a bloody bandage on one arm. And from the sound of his gait, he's limping somewhat. I remember him shaking his his head, telling me not to him shaking his head. Not telling telling me not to go and fight for supplies. When all along he planned to throw himself in the thick of things, just the opposite of what Hamish admit him to do. Okay, I can stomach that. Seeing all those supplies was tempting. But this other thing, this teaming up with Career Wolfpack and hunting down the rest of us, no one from District 12 would think of doing such a thing. Career Troopers are overly vicious, arrogant, better fed, not only because they're the capital's lapdogs, universally solidly hated by all of universally solid universally solidly hated by all those from their own districts. I can imagine the things that they're saying about him back home now. Peeta had the gall to talk to me about disgrace. Obviously, the noble boy on the rooftop was playing just one more game on me, but this will be his last. I will eagerly watch the night skies for signs of his death, if I don't kill him myself first. The career tributes are silent until he gets out of earshot. Then they used hushed voices. Why don't we just kill him now and get it over with? Let him tag along. What's the harm? He's handy with a knife. Is he? That's news. What a lot of interesting things I'm learning about my friend Peeta today. Besides, he's our best chance of finding her. It takes me a moment to register the her they're referring to me. Why? You think she bought some sort of she bought into that sappy romance stuff? She might have. She seemed pretty simple-minded to me. Every time I think about her spinning around in that dress, I want to puke. Wish we knew how she got that 11. I bet you Loverboy knows. Sound of Peeta returning silences them. Is she dead? Asked the boy from 2. No, but she is now, says Peeta. Just then, the cannon fires. Ready to move on? The career pack sets off in a run as the dawn begins to break and the birdsong fills the air. I remain in my awkward position, muscles trembling with exertion for a while longer. Then I hoist myself back into the branch. I need to get down. I need to get going. But for a moment I lie there, disgusting what I've heard. Not only is Peeta with the careers, he's helping them find me, the simple-minded girl who has to be taken seriously because of her 11, because she can use a bow and arrow, which Peeta knows better than anyone, but he hasn't told them yet. Is he saving that information because he knows it's all that keeps him from alive? Is he still pretending to love me for the audience? What's going on in his head? Now, let's go back over here. We can totally use, if you guys would like, you can totally use some of the stuff from chapter 12. And of course, we do have this manipulation. Peeta is manipulating. Peeta is manipulating the careers. Now, we can totally use the evidence that we find here when he's like, Peeta, okay, because she has a bow and arrow, and Peeta knows that, but he hasn't told them yet. Is he saving that information because he knows it's all that keeps him alive? So, is Peeta really on her side and trying to keep her safe and not telling them about how she's got a bow and arrow? Is Peeta leading them to their own deaths by just trying to bring them within her reach so that she can kill them? I don't know. But it is a manipulation. Peeta's manipulating the career pack in order to either help himself or Katniss. We don't know which yet. But let us continue. Suddenly the birds fall silent. Then one gives off a high-pitched warning call, a single note. Just like that, the one Gale and I heard when the red-headed Avox girl was caught. High above the dying campfire, a hovercraft materializes. A set of huge metal teeth drops down, slowly, gently. The dead tribute girl is lifted into the hovercraft and then vanishes. The birds resume their song. Move, I whisper to myself, and I wiggle out of my sleeping bag, roll it up, place it in my pack, take a deep breath. Then while I've been concealed in the darkness and sleeping bag and the willow branches, it's probably been difficult for the cameras to get a good shot of me. I know they must be tracking me now, though. A minute I hit the ground, I'm guaranteed a close-up. The audience will have been besides themselves, knowing that I was in the tree and that I had overheard the careers talking, and that I discovered Peeta was with them. Until I work out exactly how to want to play it, I better at least act on top of things. Not perplexed, certainly not confused or frightened. No, I need to look one step ahead of the game. So I slide out of the foliage into the dawn light and pause for a second, giving the cameras time to lock onto me. Then I cock my head slightly to the side and give a knowing smile. There, let them figure out what that means. We can use this in our thing right here. We have Katniss sets up her entire, how she's going to react beforehand. She's going to smile and act like she knows what's going on. That way her sponsors don't give up on her and so that she can still get her money. Let us continue. I'm about to take off when I think of my snares. Maybe it's impudent to check them with the others so close, but I have to. Too many years of hunting, I guess, and there's a lure of possible meat. I'm rewarded with one fine rabbit, but in no time I've cleaned and gutted the animal, leaving the head, feet, tail, skin, and innards under a pile of leaves. I'm wishing for a fire. Eating raw rabbit can give you rabbit fever, a lesson I learned the hard way. Then I think of the dead tribute. I hurry back to her camp. Sure enough, the coals from her dying fire are still hot. I cut up the rabbit, fashion a spit on branches, and set it over the coals. I'm glad for the cameras now. I want sponsors to see that I can hunt. That I'm good. I'm a good bet because I won't be lured into traps as easily as the others will by hunger. While the rabbit cooks, I grind up part of the charred branch and I set into the camouflage my orange backpack. The black tones it down, but I feel a layer of mud would definitely help. Of course, to have mud, I need water. I pull on my gear, grab my spit. That's the thing that the rabbit is on. Kick some dirt over the coals and take off in the opposite direction of the critters went. I eat half the rabbit as I go, then wrap up the leftovers in my plastic for later. The meat stops my grumbling in my stomach, but it does little to quench my thirst. Water is my top priority now. As I hike along, I feel I'm certain holding the screen at the Capitol, so I'm careful to continue to hide my emotions. What a good time Claudius Templesmith must be having with his guest commentators discussing PETA's behavior, my reaction, what to make of it all. Has PETA revealed his true colors? How does this affect the betting odds? Will we lose sponsors? Do we even have sponsors? Yes, I feel certain we do, or at least did. Certainly, PETA was thrown in a wrench into our star-crossed lover dynamic, or has he? Maybe since he hasn't spoken much about me, we can still get some mileage out of it. Maybe people will think it's somehow we're plotting together, or I seem like it amuses me now. Sorry, together, if I seem like it amuses me now. The sun rises in the sky, and even though the canopy seems overly bright, I coat my lips with some grease from the rabbit and try to keep from panting, but it's no use. It's only been a day and I'm dehydrating fast. I try to think of everything I know about finding water. It runs downhill, so in fact, continuing down into the valley isn't a bad thing. If I could just locate a game trail or spot a particularly green patch of vegetation, this might help me along, but nothing seems to change. There's just a slight gradual slope and the birds the sameness of the trees. As the day wears on, I know I'm headed for trouble. With little urine that I've been able to pass is dark brown. My head is aching, and there's a dry patch on my tongue that refuses to moisten. The sun hurts my eyes, so I dig into for the sunglasses, but when I put them on, they do something funny to my vision, so I just stuff them back into my pack. It's late afternoon when I think I found help. I spot a cluster of berry bushes and hurry to strip the fruit. I suck the sweet juices from their skins, but just as I'm holding them to my lips, I get a hard look at them. What I thought were blueberries have a slightly different shape, and when I break one open, the inside is blood red. I don't recognize these berries. Perhaps they're edible, but I'm guessing this is some evil trick of part of the game makers. Even the plant instructor in the training center made a point of telling us to avoid berries unless you were 100% sure they weren't toxic. Something I've already knew, but I'm so thirsty it takes her a reminder to give me the strength to fling them away. Fatigue is beginning to settle in on me, but it's not the usual tiredness that follows a long hike. I had to stop and rest frequently, although I know that the only cure for what ails me requires continued searching. I try a new tactic, climbing a tree as high as I dare in my shaky state, and look for any signs of water. But as far as I can see in any direction, there's the same unrelenting stretch of forest. Determined to go on until nightfall, I walk into the stumbling over my own feet. Exhausted, I haul myself up into a tree and belt myself in. I've no appetite, but I suck on the rabbit bone just to give my mouth something to do. Night falls, the anthem plays. High in the sky, I see a picture of the girl who was apparently from District 8, when PETA went back to finish off. My fear of the career pack is minor compared to my burning thirst. Besides, they're heading away from me. By now, they too will have to rest. With the scarcity of water, they may even have to return to the lake for refills. Maybe this is the only source for me as well. Morning brings distress. My head throbs with every beat of my heart. Simple movements tend to stab pain through my joints. I fall rather than jump from the tree. It takes me several minutes for me to assemble my gear. Somewhere inside me, I know this is wrong. I should be acting with more caution, moving with more urgency, but my mind seems foggy and forming a plan is hard. I lean back against the trunk of the tree, one finger gingerly stroking the sandpaper surface of my tongue as I assess my options. How will I get water? Return to the lake? No good. I'll never make it. Hope for rain. There's not a cloud in the sky. Keep looking. Yes, that's my only chance. But then another thought hits me. The surge of anger that flows through me brings me to my senses. Hamish! He could send me water. Press a button, have it delivered to me in a silver parachute in minutes. I know I must have sponsors, or at least one or two who are willing to afford a pint of liquid for me. Yes, it's pricey, but these people, they're made of money. And they'll be betting on me as well. Perhaps Hamish doesn't realize how deep my need is. I say, my voice louder than I dare. Water. I wait. Hopefully for a parachute to descend from the sky, but nothing is forthcoming. Something is wrong. Am I deluded about having sponsors? Or has Peeta's behavior made them all cutting back? No, I don't believe it. There's someone out there who wants to buy me water, only Hamish is refusing to let it go through. As my mentor, he gets to control the flow of gifts from my sponsors. I know he hates me. He's made that clear enough, but enough for me to let me die from this? He can't do that, can he? If a mentor mistreats his tributes, he'll be held accountable by the viewers, by the people back in District 12. Even Hamish wouldn't risk that, would he? Say what you will about my fellow traders in the Hob, but I will think that they wouldn't welcome him back there if he lets me die this way. And then where would he get his liquor? So what? Is he trying to make me suffer for defying him? Is he directing all of his sponsors towards Peeta? Is he just too drunk to even notice what's going on at this moment? Somehow, I don't believe that. And I don't believe that he's trying to kill me off in neglect either. He is, in fact, in his own unpleasant way, genuinely being trying to prepare me for this. Then what is going on? I bury my face in my hands. There's no longer tears now. I couldn't produce one to save my life. What is Hamish doing? Despite my anger, hatred, and suspicion, a small voice in the back of my head whispers the answer. Maybe he's sending you a message. A message saying what? Then I know there's only one reason Hamish would be withholding water from me, because I know I've almost found it. I grit my teeth and pull myself to my feet. My backpack seems to have tripled in weight. I find a broken branch that will do for a walking stick, and I start off. The sun is beating down, even more searing than the first 2 days. I feel like an old piece of leather drying and cracking in the heat. Every step is an effort, but I refuse to stop. I refuse to sit down. If I sit, there's a good chance that I won't be able to get up again, and I won't even remember my task. What easy prey I am. Any minute, even Tiny Roo could take me out now, merely shove me over and kill me with my own knife. And I'd have little strength to resist. But if anyone in this part of woods, they'd ignore me. The truth is, I'm a million miles from another living soul. Not alone, though. No, they're surely got cameras tracking me now. I think back to the years of watching tributes starve, freeze, bleed, and dehydrate to death. Unless there's really good fight going somewhere, I'm being featured. My thought turns to Prim. It's likely she won't be watching me live, but they'll show updates at the school during lunch. For her sake, I try to look as least desperate as I can. But by the afternoon, I know the end is coming. My legs are shaking and my heart is too quick. I keep forgetting exactly what I'm doing. I've stumbled repeatedly and managed to regain my feet, but then the stick slides out from under me, and I finally tumble to the ground, unable to get up. I let my eyes close. I've misjudged Hamish. He has no intention of helping me at all. This is all right, I think. It's not so bad here. The air is less hot, signifying an evening approach. There's a slight sweet scent that reminds me of lilies. My fingers stroke the smooth ground, sliding easily across the top. This is an okay place to die, I think. My fingertips make a small swirling patterns in the cool, slippery earth. I love mud, I think. How many times have I tracked game with the help of this soft, readable surface? Good for bee stings, too. Mud, mud, mud. My eyes fly open, and I dig my fingers into the earth. This is mud! My nose sniffs the air, and those are lilies, pond lilies. I crawl now through the mud, dragging myself towards the scent. 5 yards from where I fell, I crawl through the tangle of plants into the pond. Floating on the top, yellow flowers in bloom, are my beautiful lilies. It's all I can do not to plunge my face into the water and gulp down as much as I can hold, but I have just enough sense left to abstain. With his trembling hands, I get out my flask and fill it with water. I add what I remember to be the right number of drops of iodine for purifying. The half an hour of waiting in agony, but I do it at least. I think it's a half an hour, but it's certainly as long as I can stand. Slowly, easily, I tell myself. I take one swallow and make myself wait, then another. Over the next couple of hours, I drink the entire half-gallon. Then a second, I prepare another before I retire to a tree where I continue sipping, eating rabbit, and even indulge in one of my precious crackers. By the time the anthem plays, I feel remarkably better. There are no faces tonight, no tributes died today. Tomorrow I'll stay here, resting, camouflaging my backpack with mud. Catching some of those little fish I saw as I sipped, digging up the roots of the pond lilies to make a nice meal. I snuggled down in my sleeping bag, hanging onto my water bottle for dear life, which of course it is. A few hours later, the stampede of feet shakes me free from my slumber. I look around in bewilderment. It's not dawn yet, but my stinging eyes can see it. It's hard to miss a wall of fire descending on me. Oh! Now, if we want to go back over here and we're looking for another manipulation, definitely Hamish. Haymitch is like, I'm not giving you water. You are really close. I'm not wasting this. And so he's manipulating her to keep going. Just keep going because there will be water. And she comes to that conclusion that no, he's not trying to hurt me. Yes, he does. He does want me to succeed. So, chapter 13, not too bad. Then we got 14, and we're done. So, here we go, guys. Chapter 13. My first impulse is to scramble from the tree, but I am belted in. Somehow my fumbling fingers release the buckle and I fall to the ground in a heap. Still snarled in my sleeping bag, there's no time for any kind of packing. Unfortunately, my backpack and water bottle are already in the bag. I shove in the belt, hoist the bag over my shoulder, and flee. The world is transformed into flame and smoke. Burning branches crack from the trees and fall into the showers of sparks at my feet. All I can do is follow the others, the rabbits, the deer, and even the a spot of wild dog pack shooting through the woods. I trust their sense of direction because their instincts are sharper than mine, but they are much faster, flying through the underbrush so gracefully as my boots catch on the roots and fall on tree limbs. There is no way I can keep a pace with them. The heat is horrible, but worse than the heat is the smoke, which threatens to suffocate me at that moment. I pull the top of my shirt up over my nose, grateful to find it soaked in sweat, and offers a thin veil of protection, and I run, choking, my bag hanging against my back, my face cut with branches that materialize from the gray haze without warning, because I know I'm supposed to run. There is no tribute's campfire gone out of control, no accidental occurrence here. The flames that bear down on me have an unnatural height and a uniformity that marks them as human-made, machine-made, game-maker-made. Things have been too quiet today. No deaths, perhaps no fights at all. The audience in the Capitol will be getting bored, claiming that these games are verging on dullness. This is the one thing the games must not do. It's not hard to follow the game maker's motivation. There's a career pack, and then there's the rest of us, probably spread far and thin across the arena. This fire is designated to flush us out, to drive us together. It may not be the most original device I've seen, but it's very, very effective. I hurtle along a burning log. Not high enough. The tail end of my jacket catches fire, and I have to stop to rip it from my body and stamp it out the flames. But I don't dare leave the jacket, scorched and smoldering as it is. I take the risk of shoving it into my sleeping bag, hoping the lack of air will quell what I haven't extinguished. This is all I have, what I carry on my back, and it's a little enough to survive with. In a matter of minutes, my throat and nose are burning. The coughing begins soon after my lungs begin to feel as if they are actually being cooked. Discomfort turns my distress into each breath sends a searing pain through my chest. I manage to take a cover under a stone outcropping just as the vomiting begins, and I lose my meager supper and whatever water remains in my stomach. Crouching in my hands and knees, I retch until there's nothing left to come up. I know I need to keep moving, but I'm trembling and lightheaded now, gasping for air. I follow myself about a spoonful of water to rinse my mouth and spit and take a few swallows from my bottle. You get 1 minute, I tell myself, 1 minute to rest. I take the time to reorder my supplies, wad up my sleeping bag, and messily stuff everything into the backpack. My minute's up. I know it's time to move on, but the smoke has clouded my thoughts, and the swift-footed animals that were my only compass have left me behind. I know I haven't been in this part of the woods before. There are no sizable rocks like the one I was sheltering against on my earlier travels. Where are the gun makers driving me? Back to the lake? To the whole new terrain filled with new dangers? I had just found a few hours of peace in that pond when this attack began. Would there be any way I could travel parallel to the fire and work my way back there? To a source of water at least. The wall of fire must have been have an end. It wouldn't burn indefinitely, but because the game makers couldn't keep it fueled, but because again it would invite accusations of boredom from the audience. If I could get back behind the fire line, I could avoid meeting up with the careers. I've just decided to try and loop back around, although it would require miles of travel away from the inferno and a very circulaneous route back. When the first fireball blasts into the rock about 2 feet from my head. I spring out from under the ledge, energized by the renewed fear. The game has taken a twist. The fire was just to get us moving. Now the audience will get to see some real fun. When I hear the next hiss, I flatten to the ground. I'm not taking time to look. The fireball hits the tree off to my left, engulfing it in flames. To remain still is death. I've barely on my feet before the third ball hits the ground where I was lying, sending a pillar of fire up behind me. Time loses meaning now, and I frantically try to dodge the attacks. I can't see where they're being launched from, but it's not enough. It's not from a hovercraft. The angles are not extreme enough. Perhaps this whole segment of the woods has been armed with precision launchers that are all concealed in the trees and the rocks. Somewhere in a cool and spotless room, the game maker sits at a set of controls, fingers on the triggers that could end my life at any second. All of this is needed all that's needed is a direct hit. Whatever vague plan I was conceived of regarding returning to the pond is wiped from my mind as I zigzag and dive and leap and avoid fireballs, each one only the size of an apple but packs a tremendous power on contact. Every sense I have goes into overdrive as the need to survive takes me over. There's one time to judge if a move is the correct one, and then there's a hiss, and I act or I die. Something keeps me moving forward, though. A lifetime of watching the Hunger Games lets me know that certain areas of the arena are triggered for certain attacks, and if I can just get away from this section, I might be able to move out of reach of the launchers. I might also then fall straight into the pit of vipers, but I can't worry about that now. How long I scrambled along the dodging fireballs I can't say, but the attacks finally began to abate, which is good because I'm retching again. This time it's an acidic substance that scalds my throat and makes its way into my nose as well. I'm forced to stop as my body convulses, trying desperately to rid itself of the poisons that I've been sucking in during the attack. I wait for the next hiss, the next signal to bolt. It doesn't come. The force of my retching that squeezed tears out of my stinging eyes. My clothes are drenched in sweat. Somehow, through the smoke and vomit, I pick up the scent of singed hair. My hand fumbles to my braid and finds a fireball has seared off at least 6 inches of it. Strands of blackened hair crumble in my fingers. I stare at them, fascinated by the transformation with the hissing registers. My muscles racked, only not fast enough this time. The fireball crashes to the ground by my side, but not before it skids across my right calf. Seeing my pants leg on fire sends me over the edge. I twist and scuttle backwards, my hands and feet shrieking as I remove myself from the horror. When I finally gain enough sense, I roll my leg back and forth on the ground, which stifles the worst of it. But then, without thinking, I rip away the remaining fabric with my bare hands. I sit on the ground a few yards from the blaze set off by the fireball. My calf is screaming, my hands covered in red welts. I'm shaking too hard to move. If the game makers want to finish me off, now is the time. I hear Cinna's voice, carrying images of rich fabric and sparkling gems. Katniss, the girl who was on fire. What a good laugh the game makers must be having over that one. Perhaps Cinna's beautiful costumes have been brought on this particular torture for me. I know he couldn't have foreseen this. It must be hurting for me because, in fact, I believe he cares about me. But all in all, maybe showing up stark naked at the chariot would have been safer for me. The attack is over now. The game makers don't want me dead, not yet anyway. Everyone knows they could destroy us all within seconds of the opening gong. The real sport of the Hunger Games is watching the tributes kill each other. Every so often, they do kill a tribute just to remind the players they can, but mostly they manipulate us into confronting one another face to face, which means if I am no longer being fired at, there must be one tribute close at hand. Okay, we can totally grab that one. If you guys want to use that one, you can grab that one and put it over here. What wakes Katniss up? If you wanted to add, again, fire. Fire keeps waking Katniss up. Isn't that kind of strange? Why do the K-Makers want to change them from the higher places? She totally tells you at the very beginning of the fire scene that they're doing this just because it's been too dull. And now they need to make sure that the games have some oomph. So they're going to drive them out of their hiding places and towards each other so that they will be killed. How does Katniss escape the careers when they find her resting by the pond? What part of luck does it play in her escape? So let's wait for... There's going to be careers? What? Okay, here we go. Everyone knows that they could destroy us, but mostly manipulate. Yeah, here we go. I would drag myself into a tree and take cover now if I could, but the smoke is still thick enough to kill me. I make myself stand and begin to limp away from the wall of flames and the light up the sky. It does not seem to be pursuing me any longer, except for its stinking black clouds. Another light daylight begins to softly emerge. Swirls of smoke catch the sunbeams. My visibility is poor, and I can see many 15 yards in any direction. A tribute could easily be concealed from me here. I should draw my knife as a precaution, but I doubt my ability to hold it for long. The pain in my hands can in no way compete with that in my calf. I hate burns. I've always hated them. Even a small one's gotten from pulling a pan of bread from the oven. It's the worst kind of pain to me, but I have never experienced anything like this. I'm so weary I don't even notice that I'm in a pool until I'm ankle deep. It's spring-fed, bubbling up from a crevice and some rocks, and it's blissfully cool. I plunge my hands into the shallow water and feel instant relief. Isn't that what my mother always says? The first treatment for burn is cold water. It draws out the heat. But she means minor burns. Probably she'd have recommended it for my hands, but what for my calf? Although I have not yet had the courage to examine it, I'm guessing the injury is a whole different class. I lie on my stomach and edge the pool for a while, dangling my hands in the water, examining the little flames in my fingernails that are beginning to chip off. Good, I've had enough fire for a lifetime. I bathe the blood and ash from my face. I can try to recall all I know about burns. They are common injuries in the seam where we cook with heat and heat our homes with coal. Then there are mine accidents. A family once brought an unconscious young man pleading with my mother for help. The district doctor, who'd been responsible for treating the miners, had written him off, told the family to take him home to die. But they wouldn't accept this. He lay on our kitchen table, senseless to the world. I got a glimpse of the wound on his thigh, gaping guard flesh, burned clear down to the bone. Before I ran from the house, I went to the woods and hunted the entire day, haunted by the gruesome leg. Memories of my father's death. That's funny. What's funny was Prim, who's scared of her own shadow, stayed and helped. My mother says healers are born, not made. They did their best, but the man died just like the doctor said he would. My leg is in need of attention, but I still can't look at it. What if it's as bad as the man's and I can see my bone? Then I remember my mother saying that if the burn's severe, the victim might not even feel the pain because the nerves would be destroyed. Encouraged by this, I sit up and swing my leg in front of me. I almost faint at the sight of my calf. The flesh is a brilliant red, covered with blisters. I force myself to take a deep, slow breath, feeling quite certain that the cameras are on my face. I can't show weakness at this injury, not if I want help. Pity does not get you aid. Admiration for your refusal to give up does. I cut the remains of the pant leg off at the knee and examine the injury more closely. The burned area is about the size of my hand. None of the skin is blackened. I think it's not too bad to soak. Gingerly, I stretch out my leg into the pool, popping my heel in the boot on the rock and leather that doesn't get sodden, and sigh because it does offer some relief. I know there are herbs, but if I could find them, that would speed the healing. But I can't quite call them to mind. Water and time will probably be all I have to work with. Should I be moving on? The smoke is slowly clearing, but it's still too heavy to be healthy. If I do continue away from the fire, wouldn't I be walking straight into the weapons of the careers? Besides, every time I lift my leg out of the water, the pain rebounds so intensely that I have to slide it back in. My hands are slightly less demanding. They can handle small breaks from the pool. So I slowly get my gear back in order. First, I fill my bottle with cool pool water, treat it, and when enough time has passed, excuse me, when enough time has passed, I begin to rehydrate my body. After a time, I force myself to nibble on a cracker, which helps settle my stomach. I roll up my sleeping bag, except for a few black marks. It's relatively unscathed. My jacket's another matter. Stinking and scorched, at least a foot of the back beyond repair. I cut off the damaged area, leaving me a garment that comes to the bottom of my ribs. But the hood's intact. That's far better than nothing. Despite the pain, drowsiness begins to take over. I take to a tree and try to rest, except I'd be too easy to spot. Besides, abandoning my pool seems impossible. I neatly arrange my supplies and even settle my pack on my shoulders, but I can't seem to leave. I spot some water plants, some edible roots, and make a small meal with the last piece of rabbit. Sip water, watch the sun make a slow arc across the sky. Where would I go anyway? If this is a safer place than here? I lean back on my pack and overcome with drowsiness. If the careers want me, let them find me. I think before drifting into a stupor, let them find me. And find me they do. It's lucky I'm ready to move on because when I hear the feet, I have less than a minute head start. Evening has begun to fall, and the moment I wake, I'm up and running, splashing across the pool, flying into the underbrush. My leg slows me down, but I sense my pursuers are not as speedy as they were before the fire either. I hear their coughs and raspy voices calling out to one another. Okay, so we got our answer. How does she escape? She wakes up. What is with her falling asleep and waking up? She wakes up, and the very last, but she's really, really lucky because she's already packed to go when she fell asleep. So she just goes. So she still has all of her equipment with her, including her knife. Let us continue. Still, they're closing in, just like a pack of wild dogs. And so I do what I have to done in my whole life in such circumstances. I pick a high tree and begin to climb. If running hurt, climbing is agonizing because it requires not only exertion, but direct contact of my hands to the tree bark. I'm fast, though, and by the time they've reached the base of the trunk, I'm 20 feet up. For a moment, we stop and survey one another. I hope they can't hear the pounding of my heart. This could be it, I think. What chance do I have against them? All six are there, the five careers and PETA. My only consolation is that it's pretty beat up. Even so, look at their weapons. Look at their faces, grinning and snarling up at me. A sure kill above them. It seems pretty hopeless. But then something else registers. They're bigger and stronger than I am, no doubt, but they're also heavier. There's a reason it's me and not Gale who ventures up to pluck the highest fruit or rob the most remote bird's nests. I must weigh at least 50 or 60 pounds less than the smallest career. Now I smile. How's everything with you? I call down cheerfully. This takes them back, but I know the crowd will love it. Well enough, says the boy from District 2. Yourself? It's been a bit warm for my taste, I say, but I can almost hear the laughter in the Capitol. There's better up here. Why don't you come on up? I think I will, says the same boy. Here, take this, Cato, says a girl from District 1. She offers him a silver bow and a sheath of arrows. My bow! My arrows! Just the sight of them makes me angry, and I want to scream at myself, at the traitor PETA for distracting me from having them. I try to make eye contact with him now, but he seems to be intentionally avoiding my gaze as he polishes his knife on the edge of his shirt. No, says Cato, pushing away the bow. I'll do better with my sword. I can see the weapon, a short, heavy blade at his belt. I give Cato time to hoist himself into the tree before I begin to climb again. Gale always says I remind him of a squirrel the way I can scurry up even the slenderest limb. Part of it is my weight. Part of it is practice. You have to know where to place your hands and feet. I'm another 30 feet in the air when I hear a crack and look down to see Cato flailing as he and a branch go down. He hits the ground hard, and I'm hoping he possibly broke his neck when he gets back to his feet, swearing like a fiend. The girl with the arrows, Glimmer, I hear someone call her. Ugh, the names these people in District 1 give their children is ridiculous. Anyway, Glimmer scales in the tree until the branches begin to crack under her feet, and she has good sense to stop. I'm at least 80 feet high now. She tries to shoot me, and it's immediately evident that she is incompetent with a bow. One of the arrows gets lodged in the tree near me, though, and I'm able to seize it and wave it teasingly above her head, as if this was the sole purpose of retrieving it. Then I mean to use it if I ever get a chance. I could kill them. Every one of them. If those silver weapons were in my hands. The crew regroup in the ground, and I can hear them growling conspiratoriously among themselves. Furious I have made them look foolish. But twilight has arrived, and their window to attack on me is closing. Finally, I hear PETA say harshly, "Let her stay up there. It's not like she's going anywhere. We'll deal with her in the morning." Well, he's right about one thing. I'm not going anywhere. I'm going nowhere. All the relief in the pool water is gone, leaving me with the full potency of my burns. I scoot down to the fork in the tree and clumsily prepare for bed. Put on my jacket, lay out the sleeping bag, belt myself in, and I try to keep from moaning. The heat of the bags is too much for my leg, and I cut a slash in the fabric and hang my cap out into the open air. I drizzle water on my wound, my hands. All my bravado is gone. I'm weak from the pain and hunger, but I can't bring myself to eat. Even if I can last the night, what will the morning bring? I stare into the foliage, trying to will myself to rest, but the burns forbid it. Birds are settling down for the night, singing lullabies to their young. Night creatures emerge. An owl hoots. A faint scent of skunk cuts through the smoke. The eyes of some animal peer at me from the neighboring tree. A possum, maybe? Catching the firelight from the career's torches. Suddenly I'm up on one elbow. Those are no possum's eyes. I know their glassy reflection too well. In fact, those are not animal eyes at all. In the last dim rays of light, I can make her out, watching me silently from between the branches. Rue. How long has she been there? The whole time? Probably. Still, she is unobserved as the action unfolds beneath her. Perhaps she headed up to their tree shortly before I did, hearing the pack so close. For a while we hold each other's gazes, then without even a rustling of a leaf, her little hand slides into the open and points to something above my head. Now let's go check on our work. So we've already answered this one. Let's go down. Now, first things first. Choose either the subject of dystopian society or survival and describe how it is playing out in the plot so far. Give examples from the text, a minimum of 2 paragraphs. So you're going to do 2 paragraphs, so 2 examples. So you're going to tell me how is there the theme of survival continuing in the book, and then turn around and tell me how the theme of survival is turning in the print, and give me an example. So, for instance, if you're going to do survival, definitely Katniss looking for water. I mean, she almost dies. She's dying of dehydration. She makes it anyway. If you're going to go for dystopian society, definitely the fact that she, the entire time, is talking about what they're seeing on the TV screens. So, yes, that entire ideology of the dystopian society continuously watching the people, this is a big example. But again, you got to give an example of your own as well. So 2 paragraphs, one with my example, one with another example. Let's say you don't like my examples. Use your own examples. Whatever makes you happy. But make sure you do stick 2 on survival or 2 on dystopian society. Now, over to the next page. Describe Katniss's skills as a tribute so far. What does she know how to do, and what does she know how to do, and how has it helped her? You guys, there's a ton of examples of how her hunting and gathering has already helped her. Make sure you use one of them. And then, of course, there's also the knowledge of healing that she gets from her mom. And Even her knowledge of the games that she's gotten from all of the years of watching it, she knows how to play the game or manipulate the audience. Those are all there. Oh, okay, here we go. Now, this one's hard. Is Peeta Katniss's ally or enemy? Why? Give at least 3 examples. Justify your answer. Now, those of you that have already watched the movie, already, no, you don't get to use those things. No, you got to use the stuff that happened from this part and before. This part and before. You can't go forward. No. Using stuff from forward. Make sure you use things in chapter 14 and before. Now, here we go. Oop, we're getting to the Tracker Jackers. Now, these are really easy middle ones. You're going to watch each clip and write a sentence for summary for each clip. So we're going to go and we're going to watch these. You can actually hit control and then there you go. And then there it is. You're going to watch each one of these and give me a quick 3-sentence summary for each one. So you have 1 summary, 2 summaries, 3 summaries, 4 summaries, 4 summaries. So once you have those 4 summaries in there, you're all good. Now, here we go. Rue, does she help? Chapter 14. My eyes follow the line of the finger up to the foliage above me. At first, I had no idea what she's pointing at to, but then about 15 feet up, I make out a strange shape in the dimming light. But of what? Some sort of animal? It looks like the size of a raccoon, but it hangs from the bottom of a branch, swaying ever so slightly. There's something else. Among the familiar evening sounds of the woods, my ears register a low hum. Then I know it's a wasp's nest. Fear shoots through me, but I have enough sense to keep still. After all, I don't know what kind of wasp lives there. It could be the ordinary leave us alone and we'll leave you alone type, but these are the Hunger Games, and the ordinary isn't the norm. More likely they have been the capital's mutations, tracker jackers. Like jabberjays, these killer wasps were spawned in a lab and strategically placed like landmines around the district during the war. Larger than regular wasps, they have a distinctive solid gold body and a sting that raises a lump the size of a plum on contact. Most people can't tolerate more than a few stings. Some die at once. If you live, the hallucinations brought on by the venom are actually driven people into madness. And there's another thing. These wasps will hunt you down, anyone who disturbs their nest, and attempt to kill them. That's where the tracker part of the name comes from. So, we're going to describe what tracker jackers are and be specific. Don't copy and paste. Remember, we're paraphrasing. We're proving that we can take information, put it through our brain, and put it in our own words. Okay? Be careful on this one. A couple of you guys went for try to do the easy thing and go use a website that gives you answers. Don't do it, guys. You're smarter than that. You can come up with something better, and most of the time those people are wrong anyway. Now, number 2. How does Katniss escape the tributes waiting for her beneath the trees? Let's find out, shall we? After the war, the capital destroyed all the nests surrounding their city. The ones near the districts were left untouched. Another reminder of our weakness, I suppose. Just like the Hunger Games, another reason to keep inside the fence at District 12. When Gale and I came across a tracker jacker nest, we immediately head in the opposite direction. So this is what hangs above me? I look back at Rue for help. She melted into the tree. Given my circumstances, I guess it doesn't matter what type of wasp nest it is. I'm wounded and trapped. Darkness has given me a brief reprieve. But by the time the sun rises, the Careers will have formulated a plan to kill me. There's no way they can do otherwise after I've made them look so stupid. That nest may have been my sole option I have left. If I can drop it down on them, I may be able to escape, but I'll risk my life in the process. Of course, I've never been able to get close enough the actual nest to cut it free. I'd have to saw off the branch in the trunk and send the whole thing down. The serrated portion of my knife would be able to manage that. But can my hands? And will the vibration from the sawing cause a swarm? And what if the Careers figure out what I'm doing and move their camp? That would just defeat the whole purpose. I realize that the best chance I'll have is to do the sawing without drawing notice until it would be during the anthem. That would begin any time. I drag myself up to my bag, make sure my knife is secured by my belt, and begin to make my way up the tree. This in itself is dangerous since the branches are becoming precariously thin even for me, but I persevere. When I reach the limb that supports the nest, the humming becomes more distinctive. But it's still oddly subdued if these tracker jackers. It's the smoke, I think. It sedated them. Was the one defense the rebels found for battling the wasps. The seal of the capital shines above me, and the anthem blares out. It's now or never, I think, and I begin to saw. Blisters burst on my right hand as I awkwardly drag the knife back and forth. Once I've got a groove, the work requires less effort, but it's almost more than I can handle. I grit my teeth and saw away, occasionally glancing at the sky to register that there are no deaths today. That's all right. The audience will be sated seeing me injured and treed and packed below with the pack below me. But the anthem's running out, and I'm only got 3/4 of the way through the wood when the music ends and the sky goes dark, and I'm forced to stop. Now what? I could probably finish off the job by sense of feel, but that may not be the smartest plan if the wasps are too groggy. If the nest catches on the way down, if I try to escape, this could be the deadly waste of time. Better, I think, to sneak up there at dawn and send the nest into my enemies. In the faint light of the career's torches, I inch back down to my fork and find the best surprise I've ever had. Sitting on my sleeping bag is a small plastic pot attached to a silver parachute. My first gift from a sponsor. Hamish must have sent it in during the anthem. The pot easily fits in the palm of my hand. What can it be? No food, surely. I unscrew the lid and know by scent that it's medicine. Cautiously, I probe the surface of the ointment, and the throbbing of my fingertips vanish. Oh, Hamish, I whisper, thank you. He has not abandoned me, not left me to fend entirely for myself. The cost of this medicine must have been astronomical. Probably not one, but many sponsors have contributed to buy this one tiny pot. To me, it's priceless. I dip 2 fingers in the jar and gently spread the balm over my calf. The effect is almost magical, erasing the pain on contact, leaving a pleasant cooling sensation behind. There's no herbal concoction that my mother grinds up in the woodland plants. It's high-tech medicine brewed up in the Capitol labs. When my calf is treated, I rub a thin layer onto my hands after wrapping the pot in the parachute. I nestle safely back in my pack. Now that the pain is eased, it's all I can do to repossess myself in my bag before I plunge into sleep. A bird perched just a few feet from me alerts me that the new day is dawning. In the gray morning light, I examine my hands. The medicine has transformed all of my angry red patches into soft baby pink skin. My legs feels inflamed, but the burn it was far deeper. I apply another coat of the medicine and quickly pack up my gear. Whatever happens, I'm going to have to move and move fast. I also make myself eat a cracker and a strip of beef and drink a few cups of water. Almost nothing stayed in my stomach yesterday, and I'm already starting to feel the effects of hunger. Below me, I can see the career pack. Peta is asleep on the ground. By her position, leaning up against the trunk of the tree, I guess Glimmer is supposed to be on guard, but fatigue overcame her. My eyes squint as they try to penetrate the tree next to me, but I can't make out Rue. Since she's tipped me off, it only seems fair to warn her. Besides, if I'm going to die today, it's Rue I want to win. Even if it means a little extra food for my family, the idea of Peta being crowned victor is unbearable. I call Rue's name in a hushed whisper, and the eyes appear, wide and alert, at once. She points up to the nest again. I hold my knife and make a sawing motion. She nods and disappears. There's rustling in the nearby tree, and then came a noise again a bit farther off. I realize she's leaping from tree to tree. It's all I can do to laugh out loud. Is that what she showed the game makers? I imagine her flying around the training equipment, never touching the floor. She should have got at least a 10. Rosy streaks are breaking through the east. I can't afford to wait any longer. Compared to the agony of last night's climb, this one is a cinch. At the tr- this one is a cinch. So sorry. At the tree limb that holds the nest, I position the knife in the groove. I'm about to draw the teeth across the wood when something is moving. There on the nest, the bright gold gleam of a tracker jacker lazily making its way across the papery gray surface. No questions, acting a little subdued, but the wasp is up and moving, and that means the others will be out as soon as well. Sweat breaks out on the palms of my hands, beating up through the ointment, and I do my best to pat them dry on my shirt. If I don't get through this branch in a matter of seconds, the entire swarm will emerge and attack me. There is no sense of putting it off. I take a deep breath, grip the knife handle, and bear down as hard as I can. Back and forth, back and forth. The tracker jackers begin to buzz, and I hear them coming out. Back and forth, back and forth. The stabbing pain shoots through my knee, and I know it has found me. There are others will be honing in. Back and forth, back and forth. And just as the knife cuts through, I shove the end of the branch as far away from me as I can. It crashes down through the lower branches, snagging temporarily on a few, but then twisting free until it smashes in a thud on the ground. The net bursts open like an egg, and the furious swarm of tracker jackers takes to the air. I feel a second sting on my cheek, a third on my neck. Then the venom almost immediately makes me woozy. I cling to the tree with one arm while I rip the barbed stingers out of my flesh. Fortunately, only these 3 tracker jackers had identified me before the nest went down. The rest of the insects have targeted their enemies on the ground. It's mayhem. The careers have woken in a full-scale tracker jacket attack. Peta and a few others have sense to drop everything and bolt, but I hear cries of "Take to the lake! To the lake!" And I know they hope to evade the wasp by taking to the water. It must be close if they think that they can outdistance the furious insects. Glimmer and another girl, the one with the District 4, is not so lucky. They receive multiple stings before they're even out of my view. Glimmer appears to go completely mad, shrieking and trying to bat the wasp off with her bow, which is pointless. She calls to the others to help, but of course no one returns. The girl from District 4 staggers out of sight, although I couldn't bet on her making it to the lake. I watch Glimmer fall, twitch hysterically around on the door. Hysterically doesn't mean like funnily, hysterically as in like overwrought. Um, how to say? She does it without any control around on the ground for a few minutes and then go still. The nest is nothing but an empty shell. The wasps have vanished in pursuit of the others. I don't think they'll return, but I don't want to risk it. I scamper down the tree and hit the ground, running in the opposite direction of the lake. The poison from the stingers make me wobbly, but I find my way back to my own pool, a little pool, and submerge myself in the water, just in case the wasps are still on my tail. After about 5 minutes, I drag myself onto the rocks. People have not exaggerated the effects of tracker jacker stings. Actually, the one on my knee is closer to an orange than a plum in size. A foul-smelling green liquid oozes from the places where I pulled out the stingers. The swelling, the pain, the ooze, watching Glimmer twitching to death on the ground is a lot to handle before the sun has cleared the horizon. I don't want to think about Glimmer. What Glimmer must look like now. Her body disfigured, her swollen figure stiffening around the bow. The bow! Somewhere in my befuddled mind, one thought connects to another, and I'm on my feet, teetering through the trees back to Glimmer. The bow, the arrows, I must get them. I haven't heard the cannons fire yet, so perhaps Glimmer is on some sort of coma. Her heart's still struggling against the wasp venom. But once it stops, the cannon signals her death. The hovercraft will come and retrieve her body, taking the only bow and sheath of arrows I've seen in the games for good, and I refuse to let them slip through my fingers again. I watch Glimmer just as the cannon fires. The tracker jackers have vanished. This girl, so breathtakingly beautiful in her golden dress in the night of the interviews, is unrecognizable. Her features eradicated. Her limbs are 3 times their normal size. The stinger lumps have begun to explode, spewing putrid green liquid around her. I have to break several of what used to be her fingers with a stone to free the bow, and the sheath of arrows is pinned behind her back. I try to roll over her body by pulling on one arm, but the flesh disintegrates in my hands, and I fall back into the ground. Is this real, or am I having hallucinations begun? I squeeze my eyes tight and try to breathe through my mouth, ordering myself not to become sick. Breakfast must stay down. It might be days before I can hunt again. A second cannon fires, and I'm guessing the girl from District 4 has just died. I hear the birds fall silent, then one gives out a warning call, which means the hovercraft's about to appear. Confused, I think it's for Glimmer, although it doesn't quite make sense because I'm still in the picture. I'm still fighting for the arrows. I lurch back onto my knees, and the trees around me begin to spin in circles. In the middle of the sky is about the hovercraft. I throw myself over Glimmer's body as if to protect it, but then I see the girl from District 4 being lifted into the air and vanishing. Do this! I command myself, clenching my jaw. I dig my hands under Glimmer's body and get a hold of what must be her rib cage and force her onto her stomach. I can't help it. I'm hyperventilating now. The whole thing is so nightmarish, and I'm losing my grasp on what's real. I tug the silver sheath of arrows, but is caught on something under her shoulder blade. Something. I finally yank it free. I just encircled the sheath with my arms when I hear the footsteps, several pairs, coming through the underbrush, and I realize the couriers have come back. They've come back to kill me or get my weapons or both. But it's too late to run. I pull the shiny arrow from the sheath and try to position it into the bowstring, but instead of one string, I can see 3. It stretched from the strings is so the stench from the strings is so repulsive. I can't do it. I can't do it. I can't do it. I'm helpless, and the first hunter crashes through the trees, a spear lifted, poised to throw. The shock on Peeta's face makes no sense to me. I wait for the blow. Instead, his arm pops to the side. What are you still doing here? He hisses at me. I stare uncomprehendingly at the trickle of water drips from the sting under his ear. His whole body starts sparkling as if he's been dripped in dew. Are you mad? Prodding me with the shaft of the spear. Get up! Get up! I rise, but he's still pushing at me. What's going on? He shoves me away from him hard. Run! He screams. Run! Behind him, Cato slashes his way through the brush. He's sparkling wet, too, the badly stung under one eye. I catch a gleam of sunlight on his sword and do as Peeta says, holding tightly onto my bow and arrows. Banging into trees, I peer out of nowhere, tripping and falling as I try to keep my balance. Back past the pool, into unfamiliar woods. The world begins to bend in alarming ways. A butterfly balloons to the size of a house and then shatters into a million stars. The trees transform into blood and splash down over my boots. Ants begin to crawl out of the blisters on my hands, and I can't shake them free. They're climbing up my arms, my neck. Someone's screaming, a long, high-pitched scream that never breaks from breath. I have a vague idea it might be me. I trip and fall into a small pit lined with tiny orange bubbles that hum like the tracker jacker nest. Tucking my knees to my chin, I wait for death. Sick and disoriented, I am able to form only one thought. Peeta Mark just saved my life. Then the ants bore into my eyes and I black out. Okay, there's no real ants. This is her having a hallucination. Calm yourself. Okay, so let's go back to our last slide, shall we? Okay, how does Katniss escape the tributes beneath the trees. Make sure you tell me who helps her, because that's really important for later. What does Katniss realize before she passes out? Again, really, 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 really important for later. Now, ladies and gentlemen, that you got it. You're going to be fine. Turn this in whenever you can. Make sure you use complete sentences. Please, 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 please. I need complete sentences. If you're going to say, what does Katniss realize? Katniss realizes before she passes out, blank. You got to actually put things in complete sentences. We have to get you guys up to that point when you guys go back to class that you're ready to go. So that means that we got to get you trained back to going back to complete sentences. We love you. See you later. Be good.